So I'm excited to welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Janice Walthour. And here's a little bit of information about our guest speaker. A longtime community activist, poet, and motivational speaker, Walthour is a lifelong resident of St. Mary's County, Maryland. She worked in the public schools for 36 years as a teacher, resource teacher, assistant principal, and coordinator of academic intervention programs. She graduated from Morgan State University, a historically Black university in Baltimore, Maryland. She earned a master's degree from George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and a doctorate in administration and supervision from Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Dr. Walthour is the interim president of the St. Mary's County Branch NAACP number 7025, and serves as the chair of the Education Committee. She is past president and currently a member of the Unified Committee for Afro-American Contributions, UCAC, whose mission is to document, increase understanding of, and foster African-American contributions to the history and development of St. Mary's County, while advocating for improvements in health, education, and community building for all citizens. Walthour enjoys preparing and presenting thought-provoking messages that inform and entertain the audience. She will share a variety of poetry to include original poems and the poetry of others. A retired educator and community activist, Walthour uses the mediums of poetry and song to motivate and inspire student and community audiences. These presentations involve telling stories of her family, character sketches of friends, stories of African American history, cultural experiences, advocacy, and life's lessons in general. So we will have a question and answer segment at the end of the reading, so please reserve your questions for that time. Dr. Walthour, are you ready to get started?
Yes, thank you, Allison. And hi, everybody. My goodness, I was just saying before we started that I think my whole family is here. Yeah, well, thank you all for coming. And I think a very special thank you to the library for inviting me tonight. And I will be sharing my story, and we're just going to relax and have a good time. And as I prepare for these events like this, you know, I just have fun. I don't know which one to pick or which poem I want to read, but I'm going to share with you. And most of these are my original poems because I had some new ones that I wanted to share. Not new, but ones that I usually don't read. But first I want to talk a little bit about my history because I'm from the African people. Well, I thought I was, but I am. So usually I tell people my dad told us that we had roots in Madagascar. That's the little island off of Africa's coast. And so I always thought that, but I did a DNA study with the Historical Society and found that my roots are from Western and Central Africa, that's 81%, and Western and Central Europe, 17%. Now, our family, and I have the Lawrences, the Thompsons, our family was here in the St. Mary's County in the 17th century. We were freemen, farmers, educators, but my dad, Fred Talbot, was from Arkansas, Crossett, Arkansas, a little sawmill town in Arkansas. And there were the Talbots and the Harrisons, and so that's the combination of my family. But I am really blessed to know some of my family's history and to know that I've been given this legacy of love. And I have so much pride in my people. So in reminiscing about my people, there's a song I love to sing, and just to get myself in the mood and maybe to get you in the mood. Wish that I could wind like a spiral stare through time. Wish that I could catch a night train to the past, climb aboard and hear you ask, won't you step inside? Memories, memories, light the corners of my mind. Misty watercolor memories of the way we were. You know, those are those scattered pictures of the smiles we left behind, the smiles we gave to one another, and the way we were. But you know, memories can be beautiful, and yet what's too painful to remember, sometimes we simply choose to forget, or we want to erase, or we want to say it didn't happen, or we want to say it was fake news, don't we? But what's too painful to remember, we often choose to forget. But it's the laughter we will remember whenever we remember the way we were. It's the laughter, the joy, and the unity. So I wrote this poem for my cousin, Monique, and for her husband, Roy, on their wedding day, which was June 22nd, 2002. And she asked me to write a poem about our ancestors. So ancestors, onlooking, surrounding us with love on this special day. Today, we remember our ancestors. We honor you reverently. You who planted the seeds to bring us life. You who protected us, nurtured us, and sacrificed to bring us to this day of remembrance. Let the light of love you brought forth shine on us and in us. Let the fire remain in our hearts to radiate your everlasting presence in our lives that has brought us to this love, this bonding, this unity, this day. For Roy and Monique and our ancestors and your ancestors. So in thinking about our ancestors, and my cousins are on here, I have another poem that I wrote. And actually it was a poem written for the 80th birthday of an uncle, so to speak, an adopted, but he was really an adopted. His name was Edward Smith, and a family friend named Charles Gladden, but we called him Hotfoot. Charles Gladden was Hotfoot and Edward was Domino. So we had the 80th birthday party for them. And of course, I was asked to write a poem. And this was back in 2007. Both of them have passed on. But we grew up over in Valley Lee, and we actually had I guess, you know, it's the country, St. Mary's County. I was born right here in Valley Lee. And so I thought about how my grandparents were farmers and educators. Well, I will tell you, I am an educator. She read that bio, and I guess I couldn't get away from it because my father's mother and father were teachers and farmers. My mother's parents were teachers and farmers. As a matter of fact, my grandmother taught at the old Great Mills one-room school right in Valley Lee, of course, gone now, one of the colored schools. And my grandfather was actually the first teacher at the Drayton School. It's there, the Drayton one-room schoolhouse. And I was at Great Mills High School doing a read-in today, and I read them some from a book, and it had information about one-room schools. And I asked them, I said, we have one of those right here. Do you know where it is? Have you all heard of Drayton? And they looked at me like, huh? I said, well, you need to find out about that. So Alma and UCAC folks, I made sure that the librarian knew that to give them a copy of our book, In Relentless Pursuit. But in this particular poem, I wanted to share with you how things went at the Thompson family farm. Of course, my grandparents had the big table, and you know, I guess 12 or more people could sit around it. There was a pot belly stove in the corner, and they like to have fun. They like to party. You'll hear in this poem. They like that wild game, the whole works. So for Edward and Hotfoot, I took them back. I said, let us all go back. Let us go back to Mom and Papa, farms and fields, that good old country, valleys and hills. Sisters and brothers around the table for supper. Friends came too for a bite to eat. Hey, Edward, that was Domino. Do you remember Grandma's simmered, tendy and juicy chicken feet? Good. I love them too, but not as much as Hotfoot loved Uncle Milton's turtle stew, possum and muskrat. That country cooking, my, what a treat. And after supper, we all took a seat to listen to poetry. Brother Turner would spout poems by Dunbar. I can hear him say how the colored soldiers saved the day. Joyful, melodious singing and teaching. And we couldn't get away from Uncle Brent's preaching. Oh, come to the church in the wildwood. Come on, Mickey. Come to the church in the vale. No spot is so dear to
my childhood as the little brown church in the vale.
That was Uncle Brent. He'd sing that. Uncle Brent would sing that. And he was the preacher. And Aunt Lizzie, my Aunt Lizzie was the shouting sister, just a singing and a praying, that old-time religion. After church in the dining room, now here's a tip. The brothers and sisters took a little nip. The partying had just begun. Everybody was in on the fun. It was a slow time that went fast, a time of love, laughter, joy, and tears. Such fond memories we have of those precious years. Happy 80th birthday to you both. It's all that's left to say. May God grant you many more happy returns of the day. Let us all go back. And then I think about tributes and the family times. That was my mother's family, because we, of course, were raised here, but we would also go to Arkansas, where my dad's family lived, and my grandma would come up on the train and visit us and stay a few months with us as well. But my dad was, he had a brother. He was just the two of them. And so it was my Uncle Rudolph and Fred. They were the two boys that my grandmother had. And so Dad decided, well, he did a lot of things. I think if you've heard me tell stories about him, he was very active in the community, and he did so many wonderful things, you know, to support the community. But he decided that after he met my mom, my mother actually was one that had one of those children here that there was no high school for Blacks. So they would send the children away, like to Washington, to go to high school, and they would room and board with folks in DC in order to go to school. And my mother actually roomed with Kelly Miller, who was a professor at Howard University, and they have a school named after him. But she always talked about the big library that he had and how she would read books she loved to read. But she met my dad in DC. He was stationed in the Army. After he did whatever, he worked at the sawmill and, you know, hoboed, he called it, and did whatever he needed to do. He decided he was going to join the Army, and he got sick while he was in the Army and was stationed at Walter Reed and in Walter Reed Hospital. And that's how he met my mother. And I always tell the story about Dad. He said while he was in the hospital, the guys would play this penny ante poker, and he'd win and give the money to my mother to keep for him. And he said, and do you know, when I asked her for my money, she had every penny of it. And I said, that's the woman I want to marry, somebody that knows how to hold on to my money. And I'm sure that's why he married her, because he was a cheapskate. So anyway, he worked hard, and he ended up living with my Larry and me for a time, you know, as he got older. He passed away at age 93. But at age 87 years, I wrote a tribute to him. and it's called, his name was Fred Talbert, Fred H. Talbert, Fred Harold. Fred H. Talbert speaks his story. Small and fragile, trembling from 87 years in this life. Soft, warm eyes that speak of love for us, his family. He speaks of history. He tells his story of a Black man resenting growing up in a white world. He speaks of love for us, his family. He speaks of fond remembrances of a strong kinship and ancestors. He speaks of love for education, for freedom, for rights, his right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for us, his family. Dedicated to Fred H. Talbot and the Unified Committee for African American Contributions at St. Mary's County, Maryland, Afro-American Contributions. And then I said, well, I'm always doing tributes for family and friends. And so I just kind of stuck this one in here. And because I have written tributes for my husband and little cards and things like that. But during COVID, you know, you're in and you're just together with your husband or your wife or your loved one or your special person. And you're just so happy to be here, to be alive. Those of us that, you know, made it through COVID, maybe got it and got better and all, but it was Larry's 77th birthday. And I decided that I would write a poem for him. So this was my tribute to Larry Walthour. Larry is from Jacksonville, Florida. And I know his roots are from Sudan. I keep telling him that because he reminds me of the Sudanese people. And he was in the Navy here, stationed here. That's how I met him, right here in St. Mary's County. And so I said to him, it's March 25th, your 77th year. The country is in a roar, the country is in a rage. Coronavirus has taken the stage. There are times of trouble, times of fear, but it's your birthday, my precious, my love, my dear. And we are celebrating your 77th year. Yes, 77 years and 35 belong to me. Because in 1984, we took an oath to love and to cherish till death do us part. We've lived in love, nothing has kept us apart. Though time has passed, seems like the blink of an eye, as we grow old together, you will always be my guide. Each day you tell me you love me so true, and you know that I love you. Our love will continue to grow and shine from sun up and sun down when it's tickle time. So happy birthday, my darling. Happy birthday, my dear, as we hunker down together for your 77th year. I love you. It was Janice. I know if that's Larry that's on here, I bet he's surprised. Of course, I have to share. I always think about my sister, Elfrida, and she's probably not on here because her computer's been broken for a long time. I think she just doesn't want to deal with it anymore. You know how it is. But of course, it's families. It's so important to have good role models for our children. And my sister was a wonderful role model for me to follow in her footsteps. And she made sure that she looked out for me. You know, I don't know if I've told the story about how when we were little girls, my mother and father, you know, they would go to DC on the weekends and spend the weekend with friends. And just one particular time, they were downstairs having a good time, but people were coming up the stairs. My sister and I were sleeping upstairs. And, you know, they would bring everybody upstairs to see the children. Just as we'd get ready to go to sleep, they'd bring somebody else up. Here, the children, they're in here. So what happened was my sister thought she saw somebody at the window trying to get in because people were coming and going. So she was grabbing me saying, come on, Janice, come on, come on. to make sure she was trying to get me to safety. So she was always looking out for me, protecting me, being my role model. I said, well, I'm so glad she did the right thing growing up and became a productive citizen because, and I followed her. I could have been, we could have gone the other way, whatever that way would be. So this is Come On Sister. Come on, sister, rings in my ear. Come on, sister, I hear it loud and clear. Come on, sister, strut this path to success. Just march on up and take your seat with the rest. So come on, sister, take my hand. The sky is the limit, be everything you can. So come on, sister. That's well, Frida.
Nice.
Well, I did. I went on, she taught school, and when we were growing up, she used to try to teach me, and I would want to go outside and play, and she was kind of a serious person. She had doll babies, but we couldn't touch them. And don't touch, you can play, but don't touch my doll babies. But she would, come on, I want you to learn this, you need to know this. And of course, my friends and I, we were busy outside running and ripping. And so she said, well, when you go to school, you won't know anything. So, but we did go to school. We did go to college, both of us. I followed her to Morgan State, followed her in her footsteps to become a teacher, and became a teacher and ended up as the principal of George Washington Carver. It was elementary school then. It was the high school we graduated from when it was the all-Black system. And we helped to name the school and the whole works. We were really actively involved. But I became the principal and loved the kids, loved the school, loved teaching. Started out at Lexington Park Elementary, went to Piney Point Elementary, and even taught in Hawaii at a place called Kailua Elementary. But I wrote this poem for the kids at Carver because I hold education in such high esteem, and our family did, and we continue to do that. So it's called The Learning Place. I know a place, the place I deem is a place where learning is held in high esteem. The learners are too, for this is first, and they learn, learn, learn until they burst. They learn some facts, for that is a must. They learn some caring and earn some trust. They learn to live and expand their minds. They learn that learning spans all time. They learn to give, they learn to take, they learn to learn for learning's sake. Yes, in this place, I certainly deem the learner and learning are held in high esteem. That was George Washington Carver Elementary and high school. And I'm sure as we move forward, the new Carver is still that way. And when I was preparing for this, I found some cards and that the kids had written. The PTA and the teachers wanted to put my name in for a nomination for Washington Post Principal of the Year. And so the kids, you had to send in cards and nominees. I don't even know if the kids had to do this, but the teachers had the kids send cards. And I thought it was really interesting that some of the kids, this was back in '99, and the reading group did this. And I pulled some of these cards because when you look back at your life and your story, it tells you what the kids thought of you. So they have pictures of me with my hands on my hips and, my stance, pictures of Carver. I don't think you can see all these, but this one says, the thing I like about Dr. Walthour is that she wants us all to be safe. Dr. Walthour gives us fun games if we have a lot of stuff sold on our fundraisers. The thing that I like most about Dr. Walthour is that she is nice and won't let people hurt you. So that really, all right, safe. That's a good thing. They felt safe in the school. And this one was as the principal. The best thing that Dr. Walthour does for our school is that she rewards people for great work or improvement. The thing she gives people when she rewards them is a certificate. And that's a picture of me giving a certificate to the child. They were good. They did great drawings too. That was Carver. That really looked like it. So the thing I like the most about Dr. Walthour is that after I presented my recycling project to her, she voted for it right off the bat. She's also very supportive of the project. The other one was, it says Carver, home of the Eagles. This is Dr. Walthour is Carver school principal. She is the best. You know, they were beefing me up to try to get this award in St. Mary's County. She is the best because she comes into the hallways in the morning. She doesn't just sit in her office and wait for somebody to get in trouble and come there. She comes to our classrooms and sees how everybody is doing. I think every school should have her as a principal, and we all would be very lucky to have her as a principal. Carver is lucky to have her as a great principal. And then we have more like this and more, you know, with the kids and, you know, you're going back and reminiscing. So, you know, I felt pretty good. It's a safe school. They feel like somebody loves and cares for them, standing out, and we really worked at that. I see Lynn Traherne on here. She was a teacher at Carver. Hi, Lynn. I see you. So she's a wonderful pre-K teacher. But of course, I didn't win the award after all of that, and the teachers were upset, and the PTA was upset. So they decided they were going to give me their own award. So, you know, systems are very interesting, and there are hierarchies and powers, and sometimes folks come in the middle of situations and want to be in charge and in power. But I didn't get the award, but those folks, they gave me their own awards and had the powers that be come down and give me the award from the PTA. So I thought that was really funny. But during this whole process of dealing with the systems and structures and, you know, the hierarchy, I wrote a poem called Power Drunk Skunk. And I don't know how many of you know the Power Drunk Skunk. If you know a Power Drunk Skunk, you can just raise your hand. You don't have to cut your video on, but you know them because it says, Power Drunk Skunk. Once in a forest of dignity and pride, a power drunk skunk, wild-eyed and bold, decided that she, or you could say he, would take control. The skunk wanted attention. She was rude and bodacious, while others in the forest were thoughtful and gracious. The power drunk skunk, so ruthless in charge, said, look, everybody, I'm in charge of your words, thoughts, and actions. I now rule them all, not just a fraction. I'll show the world. They'll all come to see just how powerful I can be. The skunk, full of power, started to spray. She sprayed everything that got in her way. She sprayed this forest of dignity and pride. She made trees duck and flowers hide. She stopped the smooth flow of the babbling brook, leaving the water polluted and still. She sprayed everything at whim and will. She was so obsessed with spraying, she never stopped to think that now this fine forest was full of, say it, stink, for it now reeked with discouragement, resentment, and fear. And who on earth would ever come here? This power-drunk skunk, once wild-eyed and bold, began to wonder, what good is my control? I've stripped this forest of dignity and pride, and now no one else would ever come inside. Standing lonely in the forest, she sadly began to see that attention sought through power is a terrible irony. And that is the power drunk skunk. And we have one on our hands right now, don't we, everybody? right in Russia.
Mm.
Power drunk skunks. Yes. So, as I said, as I worked my way through the process of education, going to the segregated schools and dealing with this whole idea of equity and equal justice under the law and all, I started to look back and I started to write some poems. Now, the poems I'm going to read to you were written back in the late 80s and 90s, but we're still there. This one poem, and I know, Meredith, you all have heard me read this, many people, but it's still happening today. Now, this is a story where we had, when we were in school, we had a young, one of the students, his name was Odell, who ended up having a very wonderful family and job and all, but the teachers would always get after him. And oh, why don't you do what you need to do, Odell? He said, I want to be a bum on the corner like Johnny. So I got started thinking about a bum on the corner like Johnny, but he would just do that to get people stirred up because he was not ever a bum on the corner. But then I wondered why Johnny was on the corner. Why are these people standing on the corner? You know, about that time we called some of them winos, some of them were just standing around, maybe didn't have jobs or whatever. But Johnny's on the corner because he can't read. Johnny's on the corner because he didn't succeed. Johnny's been rejected. He doesn't know why. Johnny's a victim of the great American lie. Johnny's got no job. That's his fate. All Johnny's has is hate, hate, hate. Johnny does have a corner, that's his friend, where he wallows in self-pity with others like him. He's not in the mainstream, his chances are slim. There will be equity for everybody, but not for him. Why is Johnny on the corner, lying flat on his back? The answer, my friend, is because Johnny is Black. So let's focus on Johnny, help him regain his pride. Let's everyone get on his side. Let's join together and act as a team. Let's once and for all live the American dream. Affirmative action. In America, what's rightfully yours is rightfully mine. This you must come to see. I'm no longer lacking pride. I need equity. To create equity in a world of work is an affirmative task. You have the power, rightfully, it should be done. There is no need to ask. For in this world that belongs to all, races, colors, and creeds, we all must work together to meet each other's needs. It's wrong to give the power and control to those superior few. It should be distributed fairly among all, not just one or two. So in America, what's rightfully yours is rightfully mine. This you must come to see. I'm no longer lacking pride. I need equity. I have and I shall overcome. Black power. There he knelt at the foot of the tower, praying for a better day. There he knelt at the foot of the tower, struggling to find a way. Then he stood at the foot of the tower and thought, as all men do, I can climb this tower. There's no need to fail. Just watch me. I'll show you. So he began to scale the side just as fast as could be. Yes, he began to scale the side because he was proud and free. He used his strength, he used his knowledge to move further and faster up the tower. He used a unique and wonderful thing. My friends, it's called Black power. Economic power. Economic power, economic power. That's where we are today. Economic power will continue to pave the way. Economic power will move us to the top. We'll band together, we'll act as one. We cannot fail to stop. will let this alliance that we have formed, this unity, this bond, provide a source and energy flow to continue to help our race prosper and grow. Grow in confidence, pride, and equity, because we'll have economic security, economic power, that's where we are today. Economic power will continue to pave the way. And today we're still doing this, but I wrote it back in '89. We're still doing this, looking and counting. I was at a, many of us African-American folks are probably now some of the people who understand what's happening systemically are doing it too. We look around and we count. Where are the Black folks? Where are the women? Where are the, the transgender people? Where they're not in these jobs, they're not. So this is a poem I wrote called Looking and Counting. I was at a board meeting the other day and I was looking and counting. And because the kids were getting the art awards and the teachers were getting their national board certification, I was happy to see that we had some young African-American kids getting awards. And I was really proud of a young lady, Katrina Minshawn Griffith. Katrina was there because one of her students got an award, young African-American art teacher at Spring Ridge. But she told me that her students have gotten awards where they have art contests through the airports, and she sends her work up, and many of her students, and right from Spring Ridge, have their artwork on display in some of the major airports. I bet you didn't know that. That's a nice thing. So I'm so glad that Katrina really made me happy when she told me that. But looking and counting. So you know what I said? Stop looking and counting. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to find someone Black like you. Who's on the team or in the band? Who's on the squad? Who's in the Lions or the Rotary Club too? Ouch. How many of us? Only a few. My, what a shame. Then you begin to fuss. I know they really don't want us. Stop fussing and fuming. The road has been paved for you. Do something about it if you only see a few. Stand up. Stand up and be strong. Do you know what? You have the right to belong.
Powerful.
And I know you all want to ask some questions, but that works both ways, the looking and counting and the some of the other issues. But this is one I wrote when I went to visit some of my college friends years ago, and they had some, one was talking about, the Black church and, the gospel singing, and, how that's not, that's just, was kind of ashamed of it, it seemed like to me. And I said, I don't know who you are, but I'm not. But anyway, some folks think they compromise their value to be in with the end. So this poem is called Who's In? Am I jealous or am I not? Wishing that I had what some Black folks got. They say I've made it. I say I'm glad. They say I've made it. Look what I have. Made it to what? To where and what for? Have you now arrived through the white man's back door? Arrived through an entrance. Now how do you see your brothers and sisters perhaps outside like me? Out in the coldness, in a world of dismay, wondering if they're going to make it today, playing the numbers, betting and bidding, praying and singing that old time religion, that old time religion that perhaps you've forgotten brought us up out of the cotton. That old time religion, that moaning and wail and that stamina and strength designed for not failing. So if you tell me I made it, I'm free, look back on how you came to be and don't compromise your Black dignity. Don't give in to some white man's needs to see you pay penance because you succeed. Don't let them persuade, serenade, and cajole. Don't let them make you forget your soul. Don't let them drain you, rearrange, or sustain you. For without loyalty, dignity, and pride, those Black folks who have made it are still outside. And that's my story to that. And on the spiritual side, after we get through with all of that, you know what I say? I say, if we talk about church and we talk about heaven, which is I'm sure why so many of us work so hard to do the right thing, because we do want to go to heaven, don't we, David? We do want to go to heaven. But I say, after all of this, I tell white folks, hey, white folks, don't you know that I'm your ticket to heaven? You can put on your fancy clothes or your blue jeans and make all the Sunday scenes. You can give up the cash or kiss the preacher's bleep. But this I've been said here for to tell, if you don't treat me like I am somebody, then you'll go straight to hell. So why not get your ticket? Ticket to heaven. Lord, have mercy on us. Save us from our sins. Redeem us from the desires of greed, envy, fear, and disobedience to you. Give us instead time, and more time together to laugh and love, to spend joy and the wealth of togetherness here on earth as we await our eternal time together in heaven with you. Family time. Jesus is waiting for us to spend with him. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up so you'll have some time to ask some questions. But I have plenty more, my goodness. But I just want you to hear this one. Hope it's on here. And this is for all the folks that are listening today, all of my friends, and we're doing this work, you know, it's called This Work Now, but we're doing this work together. So I would just want you to think about this as I end. This was written in I don't know, somebody might have sent this to me, some of you might have, but I'm going to share it. And it's from the butcher shop, and it was written by a lady named Sharon Frederick. And it's about not giving up and persevering. And many of you know, as I send my little emails, it'll say, keep it moving, let's persevere, let's go on. And so Sharon wrote this in the butcher shop, and the butcher shop is a collection of independent writers ranging from journalists to op-ed, from conservative to liberal. And whatever you want to read, you can go to this butcher shop and you'll get a good publication. So this is what Sharon said, and I said, she is so right. This is for Black folks who want to give up, or anyone who's thinking about giving up. I had a friend that she was ready to drop a class, trying to get her AA through these years, and she was going to, I said, no, don't give up. You need to do this. So she says, so you tell me that someone down your ancestry line survived being chained to other human bodies for several months in the bottom of a disease-infested ship during the Middle Passage, lost their language, custom, and traditions, picked up the English language as best they could while working free of charge from sunup to sundown, and they watched babies sold from out of their arms and women raped by ruthless slave owners, took names with no last names, no birth certificates, no heritage of any kind, braved the Underground Railroad, survived the Civil War to enter into sharecropping, learned to read and write out of sheer will and determination, faced the burning crosses of the KKK, averted their eyes at the Black bodies swinging from ropes hung on trees, fought in world wars as soldiers, and only to return to America as boys, marched in Birmingham, hosed in Selma, jailed in Wilmington, assassinated in Memphis, segregated in the South, ghettoed in the North, ignored in history books, stereotyped in Hollywood. And in spite of it all, someone in your family line endured every era to make sure you would get here. But you received one rejection, face one obstacle, lose one friend, get overlooked, and you want to quit? How dare you entertain the very thought of quitting? People you will never know survived from generation to generation so you could succeed. Don't you dare let them down. It's not in our DNA to quit. Thank you. And that's for everybody that's doing this work. Thank you, Allison. I have more, but I know people might want to ask questions.
Sure. So now we'll start the question and answer portion of the event. Our first question is from Janice, who says, when are you going, or sorry, our first question is from Meredith for Janice, who says, Janice, when are you going to publish a poetry chapbook?
Oh, I have that. I have published some poems, but I've had this book, as Meredith knows, for years. So I will be doing that. I'm going to have to just quit everything else and do that. No, I'm not going to do that either. I will be when. So let's say this year, I'm going to get to 2022, Meredith.
And I don't think I've said this yet, but if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and speak, you can do that as well. Our next question is, how young were you when you started to write poetry? And today, does all of your poetry tend to focus on such strong and inspiring topics?
I guess I was probably, not until I was really in my 20s did I really start, when I was exposed to so much in the world. And but I always loved poetry, to start writing, but exposed really on, because that's what the Thompson family did. They loved poetry. And so I was very young. My mother, my aunts, they all memorized those long poems. My Uncle Turner, he could remember, he had a third grade education, but he could recite a poem, that was almost a page and a half about the colored soldiers going to war, and they had it. So yes. And what was the rest of the question?
So it says, and today, does all of your poetry tend to focus on such strong and inspiring topics?
Well, the ones that I've been reading do, but in my book of poems, in the poems that I would do for kids, oh no, I love dogs. Of course, I love kids. I've written, for them, poems for them. I had a Saint Bernard years ago, and I wrote about Heathcliff, my darling saint, what would you do if I were to faint? I had a black lab named Josh. Gosh, Josh, you're silly as can be. Of course, kids want to hear about your pets and your family, and yeah, no, it doesn't. To answer that question.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
I see a hand up over here from an iPhone.
Yes. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself as well. So our next question is, if you had to choose only one, who is your favorite poet?
Oh, I guess I would have to say Dunbar, Paul Laurence Dunbar. He's a poet, African-American poet who wrote in dialect and standard English. And those are the poems that I grew up with. He had a poem called In the Morning that I say for the kids, and it's in dialect. And he had a poem called The Party, about the big party they had on the plantations. He would kind of go back and forth to let you know the lifestyle. And he wrote for children. He has a wonderful poem called The Seedling, about how you begin from the seed, and as a child you grow up to be have virtues in your life. And I love Lucille Clifton. Lucille's poems about your nappy head. I love that. About my, good God, put your hands on my nappy head. She has a book called Good Woman. And I love Eloise Greenfield. So I couldn't really name one, but so I named 3.
Our next question is from Karen, who says, you have dedicated your life to education and accomplished so much. What is still on your to-do list?
My book of poems published. Not just poems published, but a book. Lynn. Okay, Lynn.
Our next question is from Amy. When do you find the time to write poetry? And how long does it take you to perfect a poem?
It doesn't take me long. Larry, my husband, will say, I don't know how you do it, because I can really write a poem quickly. And finding the time I need to take more time, because sometimes I just think of things that I can put together, and if I don't write it down right away, then I lose it. But yeah, it doesn't take long. I can make up a rhyme real fast. I rhyme, and I also write some prose as well, but I like the rhyming. That's a challenge to me too.
So we have a request for you to recite in the morning.
Oh, who said that? Teresa. That's
Adrian.
Adrian. Oh, okay. Adrian. If I forget any, oh, there's Michael, my nephew. He can help me. Well, this poem, In the Morning, is about, this is one of Dunbar's poems, and he writes about this little boy named Liz who hates to get up in the morning. So his mother is trying to wake him up, get him up out of bed so he can do what he needs to do. So she says to him, Liz, bless the Lord. Don't you know the day's abroad? If you don't get up from there, you scamp. There'll be trouble in this here camp. Thinks I was gonna let you sleep whilst I make sure board and keep. That's a pretty high to do. Don't you hear me, Lies, you? But if I come across this flow, you won't fit no time to snow. Daylight's all is shining in while you sleep. Why, it's a sin. Ain't the candlelight enough to burn out with a snuff? But you goes the morning through, burning up the daylight too. Lies! Don't you hear me call? No, you's turning to that wall. I can hear that mattress squeak. Don't you hear me when I speak? This here clock done struck off 6. Caroline, bring me them sticks. Then what happens, Michael? He says. What does he say, Michael?
Oh, you're down, sir.
Oh, you're down, sir. Huh, you're down. Look here, don't you dare to frown. March yourself and wash your face, and don't you splatter all the place out. Comb that hair and fix that head. Looks just like a feather bed, Charlie. Every morning on this place, seems like I must lose my grace. Sit down at that table there and fold your hands if you dare. Fold your hands and bow your head and wait until the blessing said. Lord, have mercy on our souls. Don't you dare touch them rolls, Sylvia. Bless this food we's gonna eat. You sit still. I see your feet, Troy. You just try that trick again. Give us peace and joy. Amen. In the morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have a few minutes left. We'll see what we can get through in terms of questions, but our next question is writing poetry part of your secret sauce for determination and dignity? Does poetry mean something for you emotionally? Would you recommend it to others as creative, but also emotionally satisfying? Or it seems, is it just fun for you?
All of the above. All of the above. It's emotionally satisfying. It's fun trying to rhyme, find the right rhyming words to that have some meat or connections, not just the rats or the cat in the hat. You want to put it together so that it has good meaning, and it's really something that's helps you emotionally to kind of release. Because I'll write it down, then I'll call my sister or Adrian on it. I just wrote this poem, listen to it. And so it might be after something I've experienced, like that power drunk skunk. That was an emotional experience. So all of the above to that question. And yes, I would recommend those that love to write, to try it. It's really good to have the kids in school, write poetry, write their own. and encourage them to do that.
So we have time for probably about 2 more questions. Our next question is, when you think of everything and everyone you've come across in St. Mary's County, who would you name as your favorite hero?
In St. Mary's County? Well, I guess I would have to say it would be my parents. They were my heroes. They were there for me. My dad, my mom, my relatives, but a favorite hero. Oh, another lady, Alvis, named Alvis Mealy. I was president of the Teachers Association at one time, and Alvis was my mentor. She was the president, and she was pulling me along. She was another one, come on, Janice. But she just, and when I had this entanglement with the power drunk Skunk, Alvis said, you're going to go, and you're going to go, and you're going to sit in there, and you're going to talk to her and tell her how you feel and what you think. And I was like, oh, I can go do that. Yes, you can. You're going to do it. You are going to do it. And I did it. I went in, sat to and talked to the person and told them how I felt. So that was a rude awakening for me to be able to do that. So Alvis, she's gone now, but she was quite a character.
So I would like to thank Dr. Walthour for sharing her words with us today. That was wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
thank you all for spending time with us this evening.